Now let me tell y'all about the music that y'all listen to on a regular basis. It's played through bad frequencies. Look it up on YouTube, bro. Look it up right now when y'all done with this video.
So, in order to compare 432 versus 440, I just detuned my piano by about 32 cents. It's the difference between 440 hertz and 432 hertz. This is what all the apps do that claim to convert your music to 432 hertz. They just detune it by that factor.
432 hertz apps. You could play all your music and everything through this app.
The important thing though is that it's not changing the temperament. The distance between each one of these notes in the scale remains exactly the same as it does in 440. We use a 12-tone equal tempered system. That doesn't bother me, but the big reason why people keep talking about 432 is because of its frequency relationships.
It's played through bad frequencies.
If we simply keep the equal temperament at 432, we won't get these better frequencies. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna retune my entire piano to these better frequencies, whatever they are. There's a problem though. There are many different sources online that give different values, so we'll try a couple of them. The first source we're gonna check out is a documentary called Sonic Geometry, the Language of Frequency and Form, which has almost 2 million views on YouTube. Let's check it out.
The tuning method required to reveal geometric shapes is based on a mathematical grid rather than mathematical ratios. This grid, if it had a name, would probably be called something like factor 9, because the number 9 is found not only in the sum of every note on the grid, but also as the number required to move up or down the scale.
Okay, great. We have our chart. So I'm going to use the software called Piano Tech, which is super powerful. It lets me tune to very specific frequencies. First, we're going to go to 432 hertz, of course. Then we're going to go to advanced tuning. We're going to select and make sure that A is right situated there. We select frequencies, and then boom, we have A equals 432 hertz at the top. Now we can just type in whatever we want for the rest of the notes. So instead of 407.8 hertz, ooh, that's bad math, we're going to find, oh, A flat should be 414 hertz. Much better. Now you might notice on this chart that there's both G sharp and A flat here, which are enharmonic. They're the same thing in our equal tempered system. We're gonna just kind of ignore that for right now and move on to figure out what G is supposed to be. It's supposed to be 378 hertz. Type that bad boy in. F sharp's 360. F is 342. E is 324. D sharp is 306. D is 288, C sharp is 270, C is 252, B is 234, and A sharp is 225. So now that we've retuned this factor 9 grid, let's hear how music sounds with it. Check it out. That didn't sound all that harmonious to me, like it's some greater expression of musical truth and beauty in the universe. To me, that sounded quite, dare I say, out of tune.
It's played through bad frequencies.
Well, it turns out the way that musicians play their instruments and tune their instruments has less to do with specific frequencies and much more to do with the relationships between those frequencies. What we have found is that our ears generally like simple relationships between two frequencies. The number of the frequency just doesn't really matter to musicians. It's that ratio that matters. We currently use a 12-tone equal tempered system to tune our musical instruments, which not only does a pretty good job of approximating these ratios, it does a pretty good job of approximating them in quite literally every possible key, which means that our current system is very, very versatile. We can use it to play basically any style of music. The same really can't be said for this whole A432 factor 9 system. It's a just intonated system that can only really be played in the key of A if it's going to sound in tune. And even then, we have to be very cognizant of the exact ratios that we're using. Anyway, we can find the ratios between all of these numbers right here by going into Piano Tech and clicking Sensor Ratio, and then we have our just intonated ratios for us to dissect. A couple of them are going to sound really good. The relationship of A to C sharp, that major third, is a 5-to-4 relationship. Some of these relationships are really strange though, like 13 to 12. I actually don't really know what the name of that is. Hold on one second. Yeah, so there's this website which is a list of like all the English interval names, and you get the basic ones like major third and perfect fifth, all the classic ones. But then 13 against 12 is the tridecimal 2/3 tone. Whew! That sounds really weird and out. 23 against 12, that's another strange one. 23 against 12, wow, okay. That's the vicemetertial major seventh. Whew, that's strange. You got a couple other strange ones in here. 7 against 4, which is the harmonic seventh, which sounds kind of nice. So I'm going to improvise a little bit in the key of A so you can hear how the system works and see if you like it. I don't know, maybe you will. Okay, so some of that sounded a little strange, but to me, some of it didn't sound all that bad, actually. It is very limiting, though. If the point of music is to express thoughts and feelings, the thoughts and feelings that this particular temperament and tuning system has to express are, in my opinion, fairly limited. So let's find another one. This is not the only one out there. So this chart has chakra frequencies and then their correlations. It has all the different notes, not everything in the chromatic scale, but we'll do as much as we can, and then their corresponding chakras. I don't really know much about chakras, but we'll play those frequencies on the piano and see what kind of music we can make with them. Okay, we typed in these bad boys. This is what they sound like. Okay, dare we improvise some music? Let's improvise something. So maybe we're targeting too many chakras at the same time. That certainly was a lot worse than the last one.
It's played through bad frequencies.
If we check out the ratios between these frequencies, we find some pretty strange ones. Like the distance between A to C sharp is 23 to 18, which is the vicemetertial major third. This chakra tuning also doesn't contain a perfect fifth, which is really strange, the ratio of 3 to 2. Every culture across basically all of human civilization has included tuning temperaments that have at least a perfect fifth in it, and this doesn't. The closest that it has is a 13 against 9 ratio, which is a tridecimal diminished fifth. So clearly, with this chakra tuning, these numbers are not really designed for a tuning system for musical instruments. According to this chart, anyway, musical tuning doesn't quite line up with our chakras, and if we did try and line it up with the chakras like we just did, it would sound really weird musically.
It's played through bad frequencies.
Let's check out one more option with 432 temperament. This is a Pythagorean tuning, or at least a version of it. Allegedly, if you take the Schumann resonance, which is supposed to be the resonance of Earth, about 8 hertz, you can calculate A432 using Pythagorean tuning. This is a chart that has it with nice Pythagorean tuning based on the Schumann resonance, so let's just type that into Piano Tech. 432... 384. We're doubling up on a lot of these because it just has the white keys, so we're just going to worry about those. 384. Okay, so now my keyboard's in nice Pythagorean tuning with all these nice even numbers, not these decimal points with modern standard tuning. Ugh. Now this is the good stuff. Let's listen to it. Okay, so there's clearly something wrong here. What is it? Well, it turns out that these are not the frequencies of Pythagorean tuning. There's a little bit of a deception going on here. Normally, to get Pythagorean intervals, what you would do is multiply C, for example, at 256 by 3/2, the ratio of a perfect fifth, and you would in fact get G equals 384. That's good math. However, to get the frequency for F, which is a perfect fifth down from C, you'd invert the multiplication. So instead of multiplying by 3/2, you'd multiply by 2/3. So C, 256 times 2/3 is 170.6 repeating. Ugh. That number doesn't look right. It's like all decimal pointy. This number of F, 176, looks a little bit nicer because there isn't a decimal point, even though the ratio of 170.6 repeating relates back to C by a simpler ratio. In this case, F relates back to C by the ratio of 11:8. 11:8 is not a Pythagorean ratio. It was simply chosen because the numbers look nicer, not because the music that they make sounds better.
It's played through bad frequencies.
In piano tech, we can actually just select a Pythagorean temperament with 432, and some of the numbers don't look right, but they are Pythagorean in their conception. Okay, so there's a weird chord in there, but for the most part, it sounded okay, it sounded doable. We don't really use Pythagorean tuning all that much anymore because it's not the best for harmony. A lot of the thirds don't end up sounding very in tune. Instead, we generally use 12-tone equal temperament because it's so much more musically versatile. So if you like 432, I hope this video has made you think a little bit more about what you read online in terms of frequency. Pretty much everything out there I've seen has nothing to do with actual music making. It's just trying to get the numbers to look a certain way. Musicians across all cultures have been working on problems of tuning and temperament for quite literally thousands of years, and all the discussion I've read online so far about 432 has completely ignored that body of work. Instead, we get this really weird numerology, which doesn't have any basis in actual music making, as you heard in this video. Listen, I do know that there's this feeling that things are profoundly wrong right now. And it might feel nice to try and justify that feeling by saying, well, what if we were tuning music incorrectly this entire time? Music affects us and our bodies in a very deep and meaningful way, so if we were tuning music incorrectly, it would affect us negatively. I understand that feeling, and honestly, if you like the sound of equal temperament in 432 better than 440, more power to you. There's plenty of reasons why that might be. It might sound warmer and darker. You might be able to sing in 432 a little bit better, but once you try and justify this stuff with frequencies and numbers and pseudoscience, then there's a certain arrogance that's involved. Because a lot of people will say, these are the frequencies we should be using without actually trying to make music using those frequencies in the first place. As you heard in this video, those frequencies can sound quite chaotic and quite spicy. Might not be the emotional sort of situation that people who like 432 are going for. I, for one, kind of liked it sometimes, but there is that disconnect there. So, if you like any of this stuff, try and make music with it first before you say, these are the frequencies that you should be using.